Mind, Body, Spirit is the horror movie we're discussing today. This is a new found footage film about a yoga instructor. An indie film focused on an inspiring yogi. A wellness coach after the internet's approval instead of seeking therapy for the problems they're trying to escape. Everything about this setup I love. And surely being about yoga, the spiritual practice about harmony between one's body and mind, this should be a body horror. Well, no such luck, because although this film has an enticing theme, a convincing lead, and an exciting setup, it runs out of steam quite quickly. The film follows Anya and it gets right to the good stuff, starting in a red room. If you don't know what a red room is, well, it's an urban legend that is referring to a hidden service or website on the dark web depicting live violence against humans. I'll let you use your imagination. But in this film, we are in that website and we click on this video, which is a stream of a yogi. And here we enter what we presume is a live stream of this new wellness host instructing us through a yoga session. And it's not long before we learn that Anya is new in town. In fact, this is a new house for her. She has just inherited this from her late estranged grandmother. Here she finds an unwritten practice linked to the family's heritage, which may help her stand out online, boosting her new content and career. But it's not long before things take, a dark shift. It's a great idea from the setup and I was sold, but there are some obvious glaring issues once the film commences, which result in it losing its uniqueness completely. First, the film is not entirely found footage. Instead, it's a hybrid of sorts, which ruins the magic. We assume by the setup that we're watching found footage of a live stream or just one continuous video, but that is not the case. It contains both edited and raw materials, including jump cuts, editing within one clip, one scene, but then also materials that couldn't be filmed, like her sleeping or her on Zoom calls that don't make sense to be put into one video that is found even on the dark web. I don't know how they would have access to all of these different scenes. And of course, like all horror movies, especially found footage films, there is an argument for the suspense of disbelief. We understand this is a story, this is a work of fiction when we press play, but because this is a found footage film that is meant to be contained within this one camera, it kind of kills the whole idea and premise. And being contained within the red room perhaps raises more questions than it gives answers. This also flows into the next issue I had with the film, which was its adverts. Because we're watching a stream, there are adverts cut in as we go along. And the adverts do serve a purpose for the deeper meaning of the entire film. It focuses on the criticism of wellness influencers and seeing them as an edited, shiny version of themselves compared to what we're actually seeing in these raw clips. They're presenting very fake and over the top, but at the same time, this goes against the very tone of this film as we're watching the main character alone in her house, the creaking floorboards, and then suddenly we cut to an overproduced advert which is bright, it's got loud music. It really kills any tension that they have built up at this point. I felt like it interfered with the mood of the film and it was a complete pivot in a different direction. In fact, this overproducing is seen and echoed throughout the entire film in other ways. The perk of indie found footage horror is its rawness. If they can get the audience to suspend their belief and get in the zone with the atmosphere, it's like a hypnotic state. With minimal equipment and a skeleton crew, they can really plan out these logistics to a T, decide where they want to hide cuts and hide strings to move objects, really using trickery to create this film magic. That's what I see as perfect found footage. And of course, there's exceptions to this, but what I really love about indie found footage is the psychology behind it. Films like Blair Witch, films like Paranormal Activity, which I am not afraid to say still scares me to death to this day. I know. I know a lot of you want me to revoke my horror fan card, but I will not. You know what is good about being a horror fan is you want to be scared. They're meant to be scary. It's meant to work on you. But Mind, Body, Spirit refuses to embrace the magic of found footage and instead adds obvious illusions and overlaid effects into the film. What could have been a cold, dark, and isolated story about self-discovery with body horror instead turns into a movie that has very obvious cuts. You can see exactly how they do every effect, whether it's practical effects or special effects. And I don't have a problem when they show how practical effects are done, but that is for more of a cheesy, over-the-top horror film, not really one where they're trying to make you believe it's real and trying to get in your head. Especially being an indie film, I feel like they should embrace this kind of stuff instead of working against it, trying to make a more polished look. The idea of found footage is it's done raw. And one of the reasons this is so devastating is that the lead, played by Sarah J. Bartholomew, is magnetic. The way she speaks to the camera and her devastation is genuine and highly convincing. And I can say this as someone who sits in a room and speaks to a camera. I was really impressed by her work. She was the perfect choice for this film, and her counterpart, Kenzie, played by Maddie Breedy, was also terrific casting. She never slipped once, and their chemistry between them, such a perfect fit. And the set design was also really well done, contained within the confines of an old home with minimal decor apart from a few purposeful pieces. It told a story on its own about someone who had moved into a place where they didn't quite belong yet. Something they hadn't made their own and something that they were unsure about. And I felt like it was really well dressed in that regard. And also the prop design for everything we discover is genuinely creepy and unique, and I just love the way it was all put together. It was probably my favorite aspect of the film, especially opening up to, you know, clicking on that video and going into that stream. I was so excited to discover what was going to happen within these walls. But the story, even with its drawbacks, was written in a way that the first act would lure the horror audience in, but the second act leaves them waiting patiently for more. The film had a very clear intent, which I guessed 20 minutes in, and then it was a while before the horror actually took hold. And with all of the change up of the tone and footage mismatched, any tension that was building was cut off at its knees, leaving it with a strange ending that I don't really feel like fulfilled its message at all. Mind, Body, Spirit is a horror film about self-discovery in an age where we're not even really connecting with ourselves truthfully. But I was pretty disappointed with this one. It showed such great promise with its setup, its casting, its set design, and of course the themes. Just the themes alone, I was so excited, and I love a found footage film. I feel like underneath it couldn't fully embrace the original found footage format, and instead of really seeping into the audience's psyche, it tried to really polish the production, which had the opposite effect. I'm gonna give this film a 4 out of 10. I'm really sad to say that. For originality, I'm going to give it a 6. I think that's quite fair. It's found footage. It had a nice, interesting angle, but it was very predictable, I can tell you that. And with scare, I'm going to give it a 4. I don't think it was quite scary. There was 1 or 2 gory moments, but it was very obvious kind of how they did that. I say this all the time, but I really do hate coming on here and giving bad reviews to films. It's the worst part of what I do. But I do want to thank all of you guys for being here and listening to what I had to say about this film. I would love to hear what you thought down below. This one is out on VOD platforms now. It's an indie horror film, so do check it out and see what you think for yourself. I am sick, if you couldn't tell. I'm more nasally than an Australian should be. But thank you so much for being here. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I do horror videos every single week for horror fans just like you. Don't forget, I did my wrap up recently, and I'll talk to you guys all very soon. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.